Well, welcome back. We're more than halfway through this month of Thanksgiving. We're now to Psalm 105, 105 verse 1. I've paraphrased it like this. Give thanks to God for the amazing things he does, and let everybody know how great he is. And this psalm is really going through and saying kind of the thing that we use as what I call faith stories, and it's also just basically testimonies. The psalmist is saying, I believe that God has got me to where I am right now. And not just me, but us as a people. And so he goes through and he starts talking about the history, the faith stories. He says, how did we get to be here? Well, it's because somebody made a promise. We believe it was Yahweh that came to Abraham. And Abraham received this promise that all the nations of the world would be blessed. And so the psalm talks about all the nations ought to be happy about this. All the nations are going to be blessed. Well, it comes from a promise. And it comes from this God that keeps his promise, even though it looks like that probably won't happen. Abraham does not have the greatest of times. He never even owns any land except a burial plot. And so then we move from Abraham to Isaac, and then we get to Jacob, who is renamed Israel. And it's just talking about what are all these things. It's just giving quick testimonies of what had happened. It wasn't a smooth sailing. It wasn't good things. But what the author says is, God was working, even though these other people intended these other things, God was working to bring about, to make sure that his promise was fulfilled. And so he has that faith stories that says, look at these stories and all the amazing things that God does and give him thanks for that. And let everybody know it's faith stories or testimonies. Yeah, we hear about these stories. We hear about somebody saying, this happened in my life and I give credit to God. And so we hear these faith stories and somebody says, and maybe it was some adults in your life like it was mine who said, gave credit to God for something. And I go, oh, God does something like that. And then as I go through life, I begin to line up the faith stories that I've heard with the experiences that I have. And I say, well, now I don't know about that one, but this one seems to be in line, and we just continue to move. That's really what we have from the scriptures. It's testimonies of people who said, this is my experience I had with God. And that's what we continue to have year after year after year. And this psalm is saying, come on, look at the amazing thing that God does. Just line it up. He orchestrates, doesn't make everything happen, but he wants everything to matter that happens. And he's bringing everything about to his promises, or he's not. And that's what we have to decide. And the psalmist says, well, he is. He says, tell people. People will do whatever they want with it, but just tell them. You don't have to push it down their throat. You don't have to act like they have to believe you. No, you just say, well, this is what happened. And I believe there's a God behind it. And you move on. So, let's go back to the very first verse. We now give thanks to a God who does amazing things. This is a good time to kind of look back and say, these faith stories that go way back, how do they line up with what's happening in my life? And now what testimonies might be building in my life? Happy Thursday.